Hey, it's Ron. I'm here to talk about Jack Kerouac and his book, Scattered Poems. Um, Jack Kerouac was part of the Beats movement, and he grew up in a French Canadian household. Um, he spoke French before he learned English. His father was pretty successful. His first ever story was inspired by the radio show The Shadow, and he liked to style himself after Thomas Wolfe. He was educated. He attended Columbia University. His famous novel is On the Road, but some of his other known novels are The Town and the City and The Dharma Burns, about a group of writers and Zen. He wrote a lot about Zen and like Buddhism and stuff. He was married 3 times, and since he was a very heavy drinker, his health was terrible, and he died at home in 1969. I already showed the book, but this is what he looks like. He wrote a lot of poems addressed to people, like Daydreams for Ginsberg, to Edward Dahlberg, and to Allen Ginsberg, and also to Harpo Max. There was repetition in a lot of his poems, including in the title and in the content itself. There was called Pull My Daisy, and Pull My Daisy again. There were 2 poems called Pull My Daisy, and a couple poems titled Poem, and a couple of poems titled Blues. I'm going to read an excerpt from Feed My Thumb and an excerpt from Pull My Daisy so you can see the repetition and the content in the poems also. In Feed My Thumb, it's pull my daisy, tip my cup, cut my thoughts for coconuts, start my arden, gate my shades, soak my garden, rose my days, say my oops, ope my shell, roll my bones, ring my bell, poke my parts, pop my pot, poke my pap, hit my palm. And Pull My Daisy starts, pull my daisy, tip my cup, all my doors are open, cut my thoughts for coconuts, all my eggs are broken, check my arden, gate my shades, well my road is spoken, soak my garden, rose for days, and now my prayers awaken. Let's see, he wrote a lot about death. I'm going to read an afterlife, and I'll read a couple examples of that. In the poem Lucinian Midnight, the first 3 words are dying of ecstasy. In the poem titled Poem, I read it. I demand that the human race ceases multiplying its kind, and bow out. I advise it. And as punishment and reward for making this plea, I know I'll be reborn, the last human. Everybody else is dead, and I'm an old woman, roaming the earth, groaning in caves, sleeping on mats, and sometimes I'll cackle, and sometimes pray, sometimes cry, eat, and cook, at my stove, in the corner. Always knew it, anyway, I'd say. And one morning, I won't get up from my mat, so obviously that's about the world ending and being an old woman, dying, the last person on earth. Here's another example. How awfully sad I felt thinking of my sleeping mother in her bed, that she'll die someday though. She herself says, death is nothing to worry about. From this life, we start to another. How awfully sad I felt, anyway. That have no wine to make me forget my rotting teeth is bad enough, but that my whole body is rotting, and my mother's body is rotting towards death. It's also insanely sad. Some poems have good grammar, and some poems have bad grammar. For example, a little excerpt of his bad grammar slang. James Dean is dead, ain't we all? Who ain't dead? John Barrymore is dead. Nah, San Francisco is dead. San Francisco is bleak with the fog. A lot of poems were about him laying in bed and thinking about things. They were about God and supernatural powers, and there was super specific references and him also describing scenes and people. Someday you'll be lying there in a nice trance, and suddenly a hot soapy brush will be applied to your face. It'll be unwelcome. Someday the undertaker will shave you. Some poems are really long, like 8 pages, and some poems are like really short. This one is a poem. Life is sick, dogs cough, bees sail, birds hack, trees saw, woods cry, men die, ticks try, books lie, ants fly, goodbye. Obviously, he does have occasional rhyme in there. The forming wasn't very specific. There was, dialogue in some of the poems. There were small stanzas and big stanzas, and a lot of them had indentations. There are some words that I didn't know in the poem, like Ha, Smutta, Boo, Hutta, Booty, Cardor, Renegade, Lucian, Finnegan's Wake, Rashi, Dharma, Yerk, and some I think he just made up, like Hee Haw, Momp, and Dobbin. I wrote, have a couple quotes from him. Let's see here. He said, "One day I will find the right words and they will be simple." He said that in the Dharma Bums. And he said, "I like too many things and get all confused and hung up running from one falling star to another till I drop. This is the night, what it does for you. I had nothing to offer anybody except my own confusion." I kind of like that because, I get confused a lot. Yeah. And I think he really liked music because he said the only truth is music. I incorporated a couple things from his book, the specific elements from my time, a little bit of the randomness, a little bit of the repetition. Here it is. It's called To My Lady, the Indian Savage Princess. You're the Sacagawea to those explorers. Their names were Frank and John, maybe. Speaking of John, do you speak my native tongue? Can you communicate with me, or are we savages together? Speaking of John, are you also Pocahontas? Your hymns about the seasons of the river flow my blood. You speak poetry through your melodies. Never let that go. Jack Kerouac once said. Hey, listen, you poetry audiences. If you don't shut up and listen to the poetry, see, we'll set a guy at a gate too far. All poetry haters forevermore. That was in an untitled poem. You are my untitled love. You are. That was before my time. That was after yours. You are dead now, and I think about your spirit. I think about your soul. Are you a tree now like your ancestors, or are you just dissipating in the nature like your mom? My love for you is eternal, baby, forever on like Donkey Kong, the Indian Savage Princess, and Ron. So yeah, here we had a couple Ars Poeticas in there. Hope you enjoyed.